Hello, welcome to the Sooth Singers podcast. My guest today is Miki, not the mouse, but she is a doctor and a savant. Just so many things she does, I can't even put a name to it. Artist, musician, therapist,
Yeah.
psychology doctor,
Well, counselor
right?
educator. Well, it's not in counselor education and supervision.
Counselor, educator, and supervision. That's so awesome. I'm not going to lie, but your doctor title did have me gravitate towards you. I was like, okay, I gotta find out. Anyone who's a doctor title, I have to find out. So I'm glad I did because it's been very nice getting to know you. And for those of you who don't know, we're on Threads and it's a fantastic place to be
It really
creative
is.
in just all sorts of things. Anything you could ask for. You literally just ask and you get.
Hmm.
It's a great place to be. So happy we met. And tell me a little more about your story.
Let me think of where to start. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll just start at the beginning. I'm from a very small town called Stem, North Carolina. I think the population now is still under 1,000 people. Uh, and I have no Southern accent because I went to speech therapy in elementary school, and I grew up watching a lot of cable television. So I think that kind of got it out of me. And I have a little bit of grief over that though, because it's like it'd be kind of cool to have a little bit of a Southern twang, but you can kind of hear it when I say y'all. Um, yeah. But I um got into becoming a therapist because I was interested in psychology and sociology. I was interested in like getting to know how other people worked, how my mind worked, trying to make sense of my family. And then, as you go further into this journey, you find out like, okay, well, you can't diagnose people, but I put it in quotes because I don't know how to turn it off. It's yeah. I just don't tell people like, hey, I've diagnosed you. I just kind of keep it to myself. Um and
That's funny.
yeah. And I started with photography, like on the artsy side. I started that in college, and my mom had given me a camera to use. And then after a while, she was like, here's a digital camera, which they were kind of just coming out at the time. Um, because I was spending too much on film. And because I would take like an artsy photo of like a trash can. And she's like, okay, we're not going to spend money doing this. Here's an investment where like, you can take as many pictures as you want. And because, like film, it's like, what's it, like 12 exposures or something. And so you have to make them count. I might be wrong on the number. It's been a minute, but
It's a limit, that's for sure.
yeah. And, that was a lot of trial and error with the photography. Like I never took a class. I joined a club one time, but some people were kind of snooty, and so it was kind of discouraging to go. Um, but I started painting this year. I guess I could explain more about that because I've always wanted to paint, but I have a slew of diagnoses myself. But and one of them's ADHD, and there's anxiety, and there's just like this. There's been this fear of failure where it's like, okay, if I'm not automatically good at this thing, I don't want to try it. But
Mm.
but I'm a therapist, and I tell people, you can't be good at something until you actually start trying to be, trying for it. And so I decided to listen to my own advice, I guess, and I just started painting, and it turns out I'm not terrible at it. And I mean, like, I'm not good at like the fine details, but it's like I've only been doing it since February. So, um I feel like that's okay. And it's also okay if I'm never great at the fine details because I kind of like my style. And I find it to be really therapeutic and one of those things I can like lose time just focusing on.
Mm. That's
I
an
didn't even touch on the
interesting
music.
concept.
Sorry.
And then music, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I've heard that phrase here and there, and something you can lose time in or into. That's an interesting concept nowadays because it makes me reflect on the things that I do and like music and arts and all that sort of thing. I don't like to spend time. I like to be I like to be in and out as fast as possible because it's I don't know. I don't know, but that's a it's puzzling to me now from my standpoint.
And I feel like I can relate to that because I used to be a big reader, but when I think about reading, I think, okay, well that's going to take a lot of time in order to make it worth it. Um but then I'll turn around and I'll paint for an hour. I'll make a song on some app and I'll spend like an hour, hour and a half just fine tuning things, and the time's going to pass anyway. And that's something I try to remind myself of. Um which is easier said than done, right? Because like we're doing so many things throughout the day and it's easy to lose sight of things.
Yeah, that is true. And well, juggling so many things, do you often decide on one thing to do per day? Like if
I just kind of go with whatever I'm feeling in the mood to do because sometimes I'll have a night free and I'm like, "Oh, what do I do with myself?" And and I might knock out a couple of paintings, and then I might have a song kind of worked on, and then I still have time. And other times it's I don't know. Sorry, I this is the nerves coming in. Um I have already forgotten the question now.
that's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Cool.
We were talking about something,
Oh, that's good. Okay.
that's for sure.
But
Let's
I
do that.
yeah, but like art and mental health and like it's really I think it's helpful for, knowing it's okay for that time to pass, and like being present. It helps you to be present because when I'm not focusing on those things, honestly, I have trouble being in the moment, and it's something that I'm actively working on. I've got the little sensory squishy toy just to kind of
Hmm.
keep me a little grounded right now. And I even use them during sessions. Because I think I mentioned I have ADHD, and so sometimes it's important to have a little extra sensory input.
Interesting.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like so many avenues we could take with that.
Yeah.
While I have the idea fresh, I have a recent theory that actually I attribute brain fog to this concept. So I think you're probably aware of how the human brain only estimates numbers greater than four. Have you heard
Oh,
of that?
I have not, but I understand that you can only hold a certain amount of digits in your head, or I mean digits, but items in your head.
Yeah. So there's
So that
something
makes
like that.
sense.
So there's like a well, this isn't something that I read per se. I mean, the numbers did. I did. But I just started thinking and applying and experimenting, which is what I do. And I found that if we're juggling up to four things, it's okay. Like four is it might be a challenge, but it's all right. When things get less defined, we get more afraid. And so to me, there's a correlation that if it's greater than four and it becomes more estimated,
Mhm.
that means it's less defined. That means it's more unknown.
Yeah.
And so if we're holding on to so many different things, that's what brain fog truly is. That's my theory. I wanted to hear your perspective on it.
Oh, that makes sense because unless you have it like some order to it, like if you have like a list on a whiteboard or something, or a Google Calendar, something to keep track of it, then there's always that worry in the back of your mind, like, am I forgetting something? Because and probably,
Yeah, almost certainly, because there's so much. I mean, there's more than four things in the universe, right?
yeah,
If there were only four things, it would be kosher.
right.
But in our own lives, even in just the span of a minute, there is a trillion things you can worry about. So that's a really interesting subject. I appreciate your feedback on it because it's not something that I've gotten much feedback on.
Mhm.
Another thing I wanted to ask was regarding ADHD. I recently learned that there are attention blinks.
Mhm.
I got this from Andrew Huberman. I'm sure you know Huberman Labs. Oh well, you'll be so happy to find out. I'll send you a link after this, but
Awesome.
Andrew Huberman is head of neuroscience at Stanford,
Okay.
and he's a legend. I mean, he has a podcast. I think it's weekly, but he does like 3.5 hours of a certain topic where he
Mhm.
goes into very practical advice and how to apply neuroscience to your favor. And one of the things he said was about attention blinks and that ADHD, people who have ADHD, it's believed that they have more attention blinks. And just like your attention takes a portal, goes elsewhere.
Mhm.
I don't have a diagnosis personally of anything. So I'm always curious to understand the perspective of someone who does. I guess we can't compare perspectives, but I just want to know how is that maybe helpful for you, even?
Uh, well, it can be helpful when I'm ruminating or something, where if I'm caught on a negative thought and then I don't know, something distracts me somehow, um, I'll be like, what was I thinking about? It felt like it was important. Well, it'll come back if it was. Um, I mean, that normally happens when I'm in the middle of telling like what I think is an awesome story that may not really be that great in retrospect, but it feels really important. And once I'm in the middle of a story, like I don't want to stop it. I'm like, no, I have to get to the end. And then if something distracts me, um, I'll I sometimes I get a little frustrated, but I've been working on telling myself, like I said before, like it'll and like you said before, it'll come back if it's important, and just kind of making peace with that. And so, in a weird way, having a low attention span has been healing for me.
Yeah,
Yeah, which I hadn't really thought about till just now.
that's really interesting. One, I've seen that in my old roommate actually has ADHD, and he's very he will he'll feel strongly about something in a moment, and then a moment later, It's like whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm over that. So
Like we've moved on.
yeah, so that's really interesting, and I think it's you're more inclined to let go because it's harder to stay focused on the
Hmm.
thing. And letting go is actually crucial to healing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know. So I gotta bring up the subject. You make music.
I do.
Some pretty good music.
Thank
Uh,
you.
tell me about how did that start?
Well, I mean, I always wanted to be so many different things growing up, and I wanted to be in a band and make music, even though I can't actually play any instruments. These are samples that I put together. Um, and I do have bongos, and I can drum on my face. I don't know if you want to hear that. Um, but
That's great.
yeah, but other than that, like I just I don't use the face drumming for my music. I did have it as background just to hold the beat for one song, but I'm like, well, I don't have to keep this in here. This is just
Yeah,
yeah.
good. I like that.
But I learned about these apps. Like I use Novation Launchpad primarily, which has a ton of sound packs, and and I use BandLab for the same thing, and they have like special effects on there. I mean, so does Launchpad, but not the same things. And anyway, I just started goofing around one day in 2018, um, and I was like, I think I'm good at this, and I started posting them on my Facebook, and one of my friends from high school was also posting songs that he was making on putting them on the Facebook, and he's a guitarist, and his name's Justin Allen, and one day he wanted to collaborate, and so for about how long were we together? It was like end of 2018 to I can't remember if it was 2021 or 2022 when we stopped the project, but we had a band called Electromanic, and so I was doing the mixing, like the samples, and he would play guitar over it, and we did a couple of shows in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Hmm.
and it was really cool. But I don't want to get too into that because I'll forget my main point. And but that was fun, and we put out a couple of albums, a couple of EPs. I guess those still count as albums, but like smaller little baby albums. And and then I guess my my individual stuff kind of was just became a side project until he didn't really have time and wanted to go in a different direction with his music, and now he's in this kind of country rock band, and that's not really the direction where we were going. So like
Not very
I'm
Electromania.
yeah. So I'm very happy for him with that. But it's given me time to focus more on my music and just kind of experimenting more on some sounds and um trying to incorporate more vocals into things. And I forgot to say I was in chorus for like ever, and so I mean like my voice isn't what it used to be, but like I don't know, like music's always mattered to me because like in middle school it would help me like get through hard times or what I was gonna say or what felt like hard times, but it's just like if it feels real, it is real, you know, like because perception is kind of everything. Um,
That it is.
plus middle school sucks. So, but like music's been really healing for me to listen to, and I always wanted to create something, and then I started doing it, and then that was healing for me there too. It was therapeutic.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, well, I would say that's that's the arts, and I think it's actually bigger than just the arts. Really,
Mhm.
it's taking action that gives us fulfillment.
Yeah, like having that purpose.
Yeah, and being aligned with it. I mean, some people feel like they have a purpose. Some people know that they do, and they're not aligned with it. They're not doing what they know is right for them.
Right.
So, do you feel like music just kind of called you?
Yeah. Like it's been I guess it's been all around me. I can't believe I didn't mention this before, but my oldest brother used to be in a band. He plays guitar, or he used to play guitar. I don't know if he actually like uses it now, but he was in a band and his room was above mine, and so I'd hear them practicing all the time.
Oh, so you kind of grew up around it,
Mhm.
kind of as a somewhat like a spectator, but it's similar to how I think of like in a cartoon when there's the main character is obviously going to be a musician,
Mhm.
and they hear like I don't know, they hear a band in the distance. It's like muffled, and they're like, "What is that?" And that's that music thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So some immersion growing up. How do you feel all of that has helped you to actually serve people in your work?
I think that taking a chance on things has helped me. I don't know, it's helped me to relate to my clients more because, like a lot of them are afraid of trying new things and in that, that failure cuz like I mean my first song wasn't bad, but like, compared to what I do now is n- yeah, like there's only room for improvement. And letting I guess kind of letting go of that fear and or maybe not even letting go of it, but doing it anyway, has helped me to empathize with my clients more and be able to also have more authenticity when behind my words when I suggest things because it's like okay, well I've done it too. It's not just something I'm saying to do that I'm not doing.
That is extremely important. So you took more chances with yourself. Who did you have in mind when you did?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I feel like it's been this amorphous thing where like is it's more like this internal is anything I do enough? There's that imposter syndrome. I mean, like there are some people who come to mind, but like mostly it's just like the amorphous. Am I like? Are people gonna like it? Are people gonna like me? And it's something that I've been, as I get older, caring less about. Where it's like, well, I'm just gonna do it anyway. Um, but initially, what I had in mind was like filling that void of like what can I do to be happy, to be enough, and like and I guess over time the perspective of what does enough mean, like who's defining that? Because I imagine it being this external validation when really it's an internal one, which is the hardest to come by. Um, I feel anyway. Um, so I guess now I think of myself, but before it was just everyone. I guess.
Wow. That is very profound. So early on, maybe it was like a search for clarity.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. If the numbers theory is accurate, it seems like it is. It was an understanding that things needed to be more simple because we can't deal with this brain fog all the time. It's
Hmm.
torturous.
Right.
You know, a lot of time it is funny. People hire me to help them with their voices,
Hmm.
and oftentimes I find they need to find themselves. Of course, I help with the voice, but finding yourself is the most important thing. Period.
I I can imagine because like it sounds like finding that self-confidence. Like when I would record songs, and I think it's maybe with every song I've recorded, starting out I'm kind of quiet and then I get louder over time because it's like I have to find my groove.
Yeah,
And I imagine it's kind of like that.
absolutely. And there's a lot of things that are repeated on micro level. You can see in a macro level, like this is the same thing as finding yourself, and in a small situation like just recording, eh, sometimes you still need to find your bearings
Mhm.
with your own people, the people you serve. I mean, it goes without saying, but I just want to hear it your perspective on it. How do you feel? How pertinent is it for them to find themselves?
I mean, I feel like it's essential, but I know it's one of the hardest things. I mean, again, this is from my personal experience. Like, it's one of the hardest things you can do because, we're experiences shape us, they make us who we are. And so everyone has some kind of impact on us. And it's hard to parse out who, where all that's coming from when something, like when you're having a reaction, like, okay, is that me or is that, like, my mom talking or something like that? Like, where is that coming from?
Yeah, extremely, extremely. And it's so funny in an ironic way. People tell you to be yourself like it's the simplest thing in the world.
Hmm.
When the vast majority of people on earth are struggling, they don't know how to be themselves. Who
Right.
can teach you?
Exactly.
Recently, I was reading a book and it said that intuition is being taught from within. Well, that makes sense, but it's not something that you hear often. And intuition really is the only thing that can teach you who you are. I was going to ask something else about something. It'll come back. Have you ever considered using your artistic means and the experience that you have with your clients in therapy? Maybe even showing them the methodology.
I've I've thought about it. I've been thinking about getting a certificate in art therapy or expressive arts therapy.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm still kind of shopping around with that. Not to diminish my own accomplishments, but having the the theoretical models behind it to back me up, I feel like would better prepare me for that. But I that is something I'm interested in.
Good. Well, as soon as you do that, let me know because that's extremely useful. And I think it's a personal fascination. So one thing I've heard from one of my big inspirations, who is Dr. K on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of him. He is the owner of Healthy Gamer.
Okay.
Essentially, he set out to make mental health in gaming a priority and have a mass spread of actual mental health and ways to cultivate that for gamers. But one thing that he said about ADHD, because he has it himself, is that oftentimes people have to actually pick a number of things to juggle, like 3 or 4 things to juggle. So it sounds like to me you have a handful of those things, but does that fit with what you have experienced?
Like having to juggle things.
Yeah, like in order to maintain a sense of fulfillment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's how in my experience that's how it works for me. And it's something I've noticed in clients and friends with ADHD. Like I have one friend who like he'll pick up a new hyperfixation and juggle it with like he'll be into like painting miniatures and sumo wrestling. Well, but like watching it, not doing it. And and whatever else he does, like reading a Harry Potter fanfic or something. But like he's always got something in the mix, and then he puts one down and then like picks up another one. Um, I think I do that too because I used to have a blog. Um, but then there was too many things to hold on to, so I put that one down.
Hmm. So currently, what do you have juggling?
Uh, my many jobs. Because I'm a therapist and I'm a counselor educator and I'm a supervisor for interns and supervisees, like provisionally licensed counselors. So I do those, and then I'm painting, I'm making music, I do photography, but that's kind of secondary, right? Yeah, I do. It's a lot of things, and I'm also working on a book, but I um but be but that one I kind of put down a lot and come back to later.
Gotcha.
Because I guess now that I say them all out loud, I guess that's why I don't consistently do all my hobbies because you can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're juggling, there's things in the air, and there's the stuff that you're passing basically one ball at a time, right?
Hmm.
So regardless of what we do, even if we have ADHD or not or what have you, we're always doing one thing because we
Hmm.
only can.
Right.
Yeah, that does prompt me to think though. Like, what do I even do? Is it all just one thing? And I feel like it is. I feel like it is. Have you heard of Ayurveda?
Mm-mm.
So, in my cursory knowledge, it's actually the basis for Carl Jung's, actually even Myers-Briggs theory,
Oh, okay.
categorization, came from Ayurveda, which is essentially just three categories, and they categorize based on things that I really don't know. But what the categories are, is to me, is really fascinating because there's wind, fire, and water slash earth, and apparently wind people with characteristics of wind tend to have ADHD, like tend to be more that way.
Mm.
Earth and water people tend to be, well, like me, kind of stoic, kind of, it's slow start and long momentum. Whereas wind might be fast start and a lot of jumps like that. Do you
Yeah.
feel like that's true?
Yeah, it's like sprinting instead of a marathon.
No. I like to do a marathon personally. And that's interesting, actually, talking about identity and finding yourself. Do you feel like there is any one thing that you would say, regardless of everything you've done, to
Hmm.
sum it all up, there is one main premise behind it, one main driver? And what would that be?
I mean, with my art, I would say to create.
Hmm.
And I feel like I could kind of relate that to the therapy aspect as well, but I can't find the words for it.
So, what does it mean to create?
I don't know, I guess being a part of I don't know, I don't have again, I don't have the words for it, but like art is so it's so therapeutic. It's beautiful to look at, evokes emotions and to create something that is a part of that. There's it's like you're connecting with others but also connecting with yourself.
Hmm. That seems to go in line with what we were talking about, with action being the source of fulfillment.
Yeah.
So, in a way, creating is merely connecting, like aligning yourself. Huh. That's monolithic, if true. And I believe, from the sounds of it. Because, I mean, what are the implications if that is true?
That is a good question that I don't have the answer to.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Well, I can't ask a question without personally giving my take on it. So, I asked about the one thing, if there was one thing. I like to know the secrets of everything. I recently called myself an experimentalist. It's more like a journeyman kind of thing. Like, I want to know why and how. And in a way, it's a meta question on the purpose or from the same purpose. Like, what's the bigger picture?
Yeah.
You gotta know.
So like a philosopher.
I guess so. Is that what a philosopher is? I never knew.
I mean, I understand it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's funny. I took philosophy class and I don't know what it means. That is that is really funny. But I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's something to think about. That's not the first time I've heard that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. How do people describe you?
Uh, kind, goofy, funny, uh, empathetic, creative,
Hmm.
that sort of thing.
How would you describe you?
Oh. um, I guess kind of the same way, but I should still verbalize it. Yeah. Um, I am creative. I am funny when no one asked me to be. Like when it's just kind of naturally coming out. Um,
I see.
yeah. Uh, I mean, I am empathetic. And I'm a good mom. Oh yeah, I'm a mom too. Yeah, I juggle that.
On top of everything else.
Yeah,
That in itself is like 9 things.
right.
And how old are they?
11 and 7.
11, 7. Okay, I thought younger. Okay. I saw actually you posted your daughter was making something on, was that BandLab?
It was Launchpad. But yeah, she was using my iPad to do it.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I don't have kids of my own, so I don't have any personal experience, but do you see innate similarities between you?
Yeah, my daughter Lisa is yeah, she's a 7-year-old and she reminds me of myself when I was her age before like, you know, life and trauma and things happened. And I'm trying to like give her the childhood that I needed. Well, but also the one that she needed, but I mean that she needs, of course. But I mean like I don't know, I feel like it's kind of healing in a way being a parent because you can make different choices, but also you have empathy for your own parents for like where they were coming from when they made their decisions.
Yeah.
I kind of lost the point there, but yeah, she reminds me of me.
No, that's extremely true. In a way, it's a journey because there will be more vantage points like that along the
Hmm.
way where you see yourself in a position your parents were in.
Hmm.
Now you see yourself reflected and you're like, the answer's obvious.
Yeah, and it kind of changes the narrative.
Yeah. That's a lot to think about. I have this idea. I don't know if you've seen me posting because I post rampantly on
I've seen some
not
of them,
just here.
yeah.
Yeah. There's an idea I have. I like to paint it in a picture. Like I call it the mouse in the maze. So basically, what it is a an understanding of perspectives and difference in perspectives. So what you're describing there is experiencing the inside and the outside,
Hmm.
seeing from the outside in versus that way. From your own experience, just like that. How could we use that concept to create better approaches for healing and for people to understand themselves?
I think trying to take a moment to step outside yourself and imagine what the other person is going through or has been through can really go a long way. Um, like it helps me with my road rage. Like if
Mhm.
someone's cutting me off in traffic, my gut instinct is to say some things I won't say on this lovely podcast. But but then my second reaction, which I hear is like the more genuine one, like the first one is the reaction you're unlearning, and the second one is the one you're trying to be. Um,
Mhm.
is well, I don't know what kind of day they're having. Maybe they're in a hurry. They need to. That doesn't make their time more valuable than mine or anything, or the other way around. But maybe they're not a jerk. Maybe they're just frazzled. Like, and I have no way of knowing that because I'm not in the car with them.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind. And when you, especially looking at it in retrospect, it's like obvious. It's like, I've been there. That's exactly it. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. So I'm a little obsessed in finding ways to achieve or to just elevate perspective because of the value it provides. How have you used that in your own work?
Well, I guess I try to imagine what it what they must be going through. I mean, sometimes I've gone through the exact same thing,
Hmm.
but oftentimes not. Um, but just trying to imagine how would I feel, even though my reaction may not be their reaction, but just trying to be in their shoes for a moment, um, to just kind of wrap my head around it. And honestly, it's it's like a muscle, I guess, because it's really easy for me to do that these days. It was probably harder when I first started. Um, I think now the issue is, in quotes, is actually no, it's not. It shouldn't be in quotes. Is coming out of that later. You know, it can be difficult getting out of that headspace when you're in the therapist role. like when you're holding on to all that energy, I guess.
That's very that's very true. Super glad you mentioned that. I have this theory. That's that's like my autobiography. I have this theory that what we see is reflected in what we feel. And perspective is actually everything. You said that yourself.
Mhm.
So when you're seeing something when you're seeing something in first person and it takes up your whole field of view, that's all you're going to feel as well.
Mhm.
So like the negative, that this is something that we deal with as coaches, therapists, instructors, people who, well, we take on perspective. And so for other people like us, what would you say as a word of advice for how to step out of it?
Taking time for yourself, however that looks for you. Like for me, I at the end of a session, I'll go outside and just sit out there for like 15, 20 minutes and practice some grounding techniques. So like going through my senses, stomping on the crunchy leaves, taking in the sunshine. Sometimes I'll take a picture to kind of commemorate the moment.
That's nice. I think it was you who said that recently about stomping on the crunchy leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, no, that's familiar. That really brought things into perspective for me. It's something that I had kind of been thinking recently. It helped to validate some ideas that I had, some experiences. Personally, I find that when I pay attention to the sense of sound, that's when I feel like I'm in place. Do you ever use that like in session?
Like the grounding or the yeah, I'd use that in session.
Oh, I guess well that wasn't exactly what I meant, but
Oh.
that's helpful as well. I suppose I meant you help your clients do that.
Mhm.
What does that look like exactly?
Well, it might be a situation where a client has been dealing with anxiety attacks or panic attacks. Um, and I'll say, okay, when you have the wherewithal to go through your five senses, and I explain there's this technique. It's called the 5 4 3 2 1 method, where you find five things you can see, four things you can hear, and I get jumbled as to like which one's next. But the point is, you're supposed to count all of that. And I think that's a lot to hold on to. So I tell people, if you can do that and that's helpful for you, great. Some people find that more anxiety inducing. So just, go through what senses you can just to kind of bring yourself to that present moment. And I also tell people, because I have clients who will tell me that slowly drinking cold water will kind of help ground them. And I think it's a combination of the mindfulness of slowly drinking it and the coldness kind of like shocking your system. on some level. Like it's like a little reset.
Hmm. So it's like in a musical way, it's like a contrast,
Yeah.
kind of like counterpoint.
Mhm.
And the senses really all blend together behind our conscious awareness. So everything is musical and everything is art. This is going to be a meta question. From start to finish with your sessions, do you feel like it has form?
Yeah, there's some structure, but I'm more person centered. I like to go with the client's pace. Um,
Mm.
so I mean, like the structure might be like the hello, is the camera working, is the microphone working, and because it's all virtual for me, and then just kind of checking in with each other, and like maybe not with each other, but I mean, I'll say I'm fine. I won't go into my life, but because it's their time. Um,
Right.
but uh, revisiting any past issue or like just kind of letting them guide the session.
Hmm. That's interesting. I'm so fascinated by that because it's like the bigger picture that things have form, and when you see from outside of it, it's quite clear, right? Like if you were to look at your recorded sessions, if they were recorded, not that
Right.
I don't know
They're
if
not
that's
recorded, y'all. They're not
yeah, yeah.
recorded.
But if you were,
Mhm.
you might start to see a pattern, right?
Yeah.
That to me is just fascinating. I love that. So, oh, there's a question that I keep wanting to come back to. It's Gone Girl. Of all the things that you're juggling right now,
Mhm.
if there's something that is coming soon that you would like to promote, what would that something be?
Um, well, I have an album that I don't know exactly when I'm going to release it, but by the end of the year. It's called From the Bottom Up, and my music handle is Pax Minerva. So that's PAX Minerva.
Pax Minerva. Where does the Pax come from?
Okay, so in college, I had a friend who I don't know where this came from when she said it, but she's like, Mickey, you're like Pax in a box. And I'm like, what does that mean? She says, well, Pax is Latin for peace. And I don't know why she said the in a box part. I guess because I'm short. I don't know. And then I started using that. I started using packs in a box for my photography because it's like, okay, well, the picture's in a frame, and so it's kind of a box, and it's peaceful. And I've kind of had that first part, that name Pax, follow me. Even my business is because I have a private practice. It's Pax Community Counseling, and um, so that I've just been using that a lot. But and then Minerva, I just kind of gravitate to her, and that was actually like a great grandmother's first name. Um, but anyway, so that's where that comes from.
It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
And Pax really sticks because when you have an X in something, I don't know, maybe it's just rare,
Yeah.
but it sticks. Good. So, what's the album called?
From the Bottom Up.
From the Bottom Up. That's Pax Minerva. Are you on Instagram, YouTube?
I'm on Instagram, and it'll be released like on everything: Spotify, Amazon
Excellent.
Music, etc.
From the Bottom Up from Pax Minerva. Super cool. Well, thank you, Mickey. It's been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think I got to go back and watch. There's some things that we talked about that just. But as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye. Oh, the stop button.